don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Summer is coming to an absolutely frantic end. Between sleepaway camp, school starting, me taking my son and my baby on a beach vacation to Maryland since there's no camp for the big kids this final week. It's just been a doozy. Not to mention the fact that work is ramping up and I can see the cold weather coming. So as we're trying to get things done around the house externally, I'm freaking out. I am freaking out. I don't know. Are you guys freaking out? I'm sorry. I don't even know what month it is. August is supposed to be lazy days of, enjoying the beach and the heat and eating outside and whatever. And instead, I am racing around doing 6,000 things. Whew. Not to mention, I have some design clients. So working on that. Going into the city tomorrow to work with 3 different clients on 3 different projects. My head is spinning. And I was like, Betsy, how are you going to start this podcast? Why don't you start this podcast with something positive, something exciting? And instead, I cannot get out of the weeds of my own mind. What an exciting thing it is to be able to dig in the mailbag and deal with one of your projects instead of digging into my brain and dealing with all the ticker tape madness that's happening in there, just looping around and around. Let's get to your problems, shall we? And speaking of getting to other people's problems, I'm so excited because, of course, the first half I'll be talking about your questions, your design dilemmas. But then the second half, I'm going to be doing my other favorite thing, which is recapping a show I'm binging. I must admit, I binged this real quick, 2 days. I was in it to win it, couples therapy on Showtime. You can also upgrade on Hulu, which is what I did to get Showtime. Woo, it's a doozy. I have loved every season. This season was another good one. And love is a strange word. Not only will you learn that if you watch couples therapy, but I'll tell you what I mean by that when I'm referring to the show in part 2 of today's podcast. But if you are not watching couples therapy, what are you doing? Why? Because, Hulu has a 7-day free trial of Showtime, and it is worth the temporary subscription. Okay, let's get to it. Let's dig in our mailbag. My first question comes from Emily. She's from Flagstaff, Arizona, and she writes, "Hi, Betsy. I found your podcast a few months ago, and I've learned a lot from you. I'm still figuring out my 2-word phrase. I like traditional, but I also want it to feel homey, cozy, warm, approachable, comfortable, with a nod to country since we live out of town on a few acres. I need help with rug selection and rug size in our family room. You taught me that a rug is a great way to set the color palette in a room. I played it too safe with the rug in this room. I have a hard time committing to a lot of color and pattern, feeling I will tire of it or maybe it will box me in. I don't want anything too busy or colorful, but I'm definitely craving more color and pattern here. The correct size for this room is also perplexing me. The room currently has a 10-foot square rug. The gate around our wood-burning stove is necessary with twin 2-year-olds. So I picked the square rug because it fits nicely between the gate and the dresser on the opposite side of the room. I recently borrowed a rug that I love from another room to try it out in here. It's an 8-foot round rug and too small for this space, but I placed it over the square rug to get an idea of what it would look like in a larger size. I immediately liked the color and the pattern it brought to the room, which also fits the colors and feel of northern Arizona where we live. The darkest accent color is dark charcoal, slightly bluish color, which I think looks really good with the blue chairs. It's a Safavieh 100% wool rug and has held up really well. I'm considering purchasing an 8x10 or 9x12 rug in this exact pattern or color. I feel like an 8x10 rug will be too small, and a 9x12 size would not fit the space if the 12-foot side is parallel with the sofa. So perhaps I need to wait until the gate is no longer necessary. But do the colors look good with the tile? Too beige? Not enough contrast? I know you have a good eye for scale, even in photos, and I know you'll be honest. Please help a color pattern phobic out. Okay, Emily, first of all, Flagstaff. This is where, my love of pop culture and my love of interior design unite because Cody Brown from Sister Wives happens to live in Flagstaff, and several of the Sister Wives lived in Flagstaff before the big divorces. And now I think it's just Cody and Robin that live there with their kids. But anyway, I follow a lot of podcasts about them. And of course, I watch their show. So I feel like I know Flagstaff intimately, even though I've never been there. Okay, let's dig into your pictures. Now, guys, I really hope you are watching on YouTube because on YouTube, not only do we post a transcript of the full email that Emily has sent to me so you can read along, you can see the details, but also we post pictures. So, of course, I'm going to describe this to those of you who are doing dishes, cooking dinner, or driving in your car. But if you're like, I can't quite visualize, I wonder what she means by Salon Blue, right? You'll go to YouTube to Uploft Interior Design and check it out. All right, let's talk this through. So I think you gave a really good description of the rugs. Let's give a lay of the land. So if I'm looking straight ahead, there's a large panoramic window flanked by two ivory colored drapes on an ivory colored wall. The drapes are hung about 10 inches higher than the window box and they brush the floor, which is perfect. Good job, Emily. As I move around the room clockwise, I've got a slider on the next wall, and that slider also has the drapes hung at the same height, and they look to be really perfectly hung on opposite sides of the slider as well. As we move around this space, there's one angle I don't have. People, I need pictures from all four corners, because there's an angle I can't see, which is that dresser she was referencing in the email, but I can't see it in the picture that the rug is kind of centered in front of. Guys, I guess there's another dresser on the side, but I can see some kind of console or something and I can't see the full room. It is going to be very hard for me to tell you what rug size to get if I can't see the full room. I need to know how much tile is available behind the sofa because we've got the sofa kind of floating in the middle of the room. And then it's facing that first window I described, that large panoramic window. And from the sofa off to the left, we can see the wood burning stove with the baby gate around it. And then if we're sitting on the sofa off to the right in the corner between the panoramic window and the slider window, that's where the small dresser is. Now, in front of that panoramic window and opposite the sofa, we have two blue upholstered chairs. They look to be swivel chairs. They do have some traditional aspects in terms of the rolled arm, but I'd more call this style, the style you've got going on, transitional because it's not traditional in the fact that it doesn't have a lot of ornate filigree or ornate carvings or even chintz patterns or intense florals. I definitely think this space is transitional with moments of traditional elements but set in a contemporary frame. So for instance, the sofa has the rolled arms as well. And it has nail heads punched in the leather that are brass. That gives it that transitional feeling. And then you do have some mid-tone wood pieces, like the dresser on small brass casters that looks like it's a legitimate antique, like a sideboard on the other side that doesn't look like an antique but has the turned leg detailing. Yeah, so I can see that there is some tile behind the sofa. And so it does look like this rug could get larger. And I think I would like that because it would expand the living room a little bit, giving you a larger space because an area rug, defines the area. Now, let's talk about the new rug choice. It does look to me that you're designing this space without a clear inspiration piece. So guys, when we're designing a room, of course, we want to start with that two-word phrase. First word, how we want to feel in the space. Second word, the actual interior design definition style of the space. But then we also want that inspiration piece. One piece, whether it's a piece of art, drapes, decorative pillows, or my favorite, a rug that has three Roy G. Biv colors or more that we can pull our color palette from. So each color in the room is derived from a larger statement piece in the room. And I think that rug would really bring things to life. The thing that's bothering me about your current rug, which is just a beige rug with a cream border, is that the tile on the floor is beige and cream and looks kind of like a tumbled rock, like maybe a 12 by 12 square tumbled rock. And so if I squint, there's just a lot of this beige and cream in the middle of the room, and I really would love a contrast. So that's slightly bothering me with the new rug that you're choosing and the fact that it does have a pattern, but overall it is sort of that muted beige again. But I love the colors that it's bringing in. I love that it's bringing in some blue, which does feel like it ties in those chairs, even though the blue is not the same. So the blue in the rug is more of that hue navy, and then the chairs are more of a vibrant blue. So for me, I love what this circular rug is bringing to the space in terms of introducing some new colors like butter yellow, like a soft sage, like maybe a russet red. But it's doing it in such a muted way that it's almost mimicking the floor tile and almost getting lost. What if you went shopping for a rug that had those three Roy G. Biv colors or more, but had a more literal interpretation of the blue from the chairs? I think that would feel much more successful. I think it would feel much more intentional. And one thing I will say, even if you love a rug, the idea of having the same rug in two different rooms in your home is not so designerly. I think even though it involves a little bit more hunting, you should look for a rug that pulls out that exact blue and has some other colors. And I think what you've learned from putting the circular rug here is that the room needs that pattern. The room needs a color palette, but maybe it's not this rug and maybe it's not this color palette. And you can put this one back and now go on a shopping journey for the new one. Now, I know that size was a big part of your question, but I really don't feel like I can expound, I mean, on the size without seeing more vantage points of the room. And then the other thing is, I hate for you to buy a rug now that's going to be a different size later when that baby gate is removed. And so I would recommend that you hold off buying a new rug until the baby gate is down, because I do think the rug is going to get even bigger and there's going to be more possibility. And you really don't want to neglect this space in front of the wood burning fireplace by not having it covered with a rug just to get something down for right now. Now, I can't see in your checkbook, your bank account. You might be fine doing just that. But for me, I would want a rug that better covers the space to make my living area look larger. All right, I hope that helped. I hope it at least gave you some things to think about, Emily. And of course, write me back with additional questions and with additional pictures. Okay. I was so excited. Oh, you know where I was? I was reading the New York Times this weekend. I was at my favorite coffee shop. It's a blah, 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 coffee shop slash museum in Norwalk, Connecticut. They have amazing food and it's in an old bank. So they have these vaulted ceilings. It's just so inspirational to be there. And they have great food and it's very quiet. Okay, so I'm at my favorite table reading the Sunday Times, and somebody says that they're really into watching the new season of Couples Therapy. And I was like, what? New season of Couples Therapy? I love this show. Obsessed. And I will watch an entire season in one sitting. And I practically did that with this one. Now, what I will say for those of you who've never watched couples therapy is that It can be like watching paint dry. I always like to have another activity going. So whether I'm folding laundry or shopping on Amazon or answering emails, I can't just purely watch couples therapy because it's pretty boring. It's like watching people in therapy talking about past traumas, talking about microaggressions, talking about small annoyances that maybe add up to bigger things, and it moves at a snail's pace. That being said, I love it. I love it. It is Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude for my soul because you see these other people with their problematic relationships. And then if you are with a partner, you can look at your own relationship and feel so much better about it. And that is so fun. That's the same reason I listen to Esther Perel's podcast, is to make me feel less bad about the situations in my own life, whether it's relationship with coworkers, with family members, with partners. So, yes. But when we're watching couples therapy, it's all about partners. So that is what I'm comparing it to. And I'm like, woof, I dodged some bullets. There were some guys out there, some gals out there who really, have some dynamics that are difficult. All right, let's get into it. Rod and Allison. So, Rod and Allison have been married for 18 years. The other thing I will say is it's set in New York, so I can really relate to a lot of these couples. They show sort of scenes from their life, and I love seeing that my favorite neighborhoods. I also kind of understand their personalities. Like, I think if couples therapy did a Midwest version or even a West Coast version, we'd be seeing different kinds of people, which is also very interesting. But there is nothing like a New Yorker, guys. I work with New Yorkers every day at my firm, and I've been doing it for 20 years, and it never gets old because they are fascinating. Okay, Rod and Allison are no different, married for 18 years, and Allison has a bad tone. She is snappy, she yells, she's just like moving through life and getting her way or shutting things down. She is a bull in a china shop. And Rod is kind of just taking it. He's constantly deferring to her. It sounds like he may be from a different country, has a slight accent, but he's letting her get away with this bad behavior, this tantrum-like behavior. He's maybe been so worn down over these 18 years that it's just easier to take it than put up a fight. But Orna, the therapist, points out that at this time, he's really encouraging these fights by constantly deferring to his wife, saying, Allison, what do you think? Or Allison, where do you think we should go? What do you think we should do about this? And so he's fueling her alphaness. He's encouraging her to take the reins when he doesn't really want that outcome. It's just become so habitual, or maybe that's who he was at the beginning. And then they have this 10-year-old daughter. Poor thing, caught in the middle. I mean, every time her mom opens her mouth, it sounds like her mom has some kind of major issue. Just everything is on a 10 scale when maybe we're just talking about walking the dog, which is like a 3, right? I was just maxed out listening to them. But the beautiful thing about this particular relationship is there was such an evolution. After just a couple of sessions with Orna, Allison was acting completely differently. Maybe it was for the cameras, or maybe she did internalize some of the feedback. It was beautiful to see this transformation. And I choose to believe it was real and it stuck because wowza, even 1 or 2 episodes in, I could see the difference in the way she was engaging in her defensiveness. Her walls came right down. And when Orna, the therapist, called her out on some bad behavior, she acknowledged and pivoted versus getting combative. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. A couple that did not wow me, a couple that I do feel slapped a band-aid on their relationship for TV was Boris and Jessica. Boris was a child of immigrant parents. They all came over from Russia when he was quite young. Jessica is a psychotherapist. They've been together for 8 years. They have a couple of children. And Boris is basically saying Jessica does nothing around the house. Jessica is not keeping up her end of the bargain in terms of helping. Jessica, wanted to have these kids, and now all the labor is falling on me, and I'm feeling so trapped and I'm feeling not free. And Jessica's like, yeah, I'm not doing my end of the work because you constantly take over. You're so controlling that we just defer to you, and it makes it easier for me just to like go along with what you want and have you do the things than to fight with you and try and do it my way. Whew, that cut deep, right? Because I can be a little bit controlling. As you're watching, even if it's the opposite sex, I can clearly identify my personal patterns and who they align with. And I could see that controlling behavior all over sometimes what I do around the house and why it might cause my husband to kind of retreat. Oh, well, if I'm not going to do it the way she likes, why am I going to do it? But I think what was interesting about this couple is halfway through the process, they dropped out. Like they told producers, we don't want to do it. We're done. The end. And Orna took it quite personally. And the thing I think I like most about the show, besides just peeking into other people's lives, is that Orna has a group of other therapists that she bounces ideas off of, that she discusses her take and has them give their take. She has like a mentor who also gives an additional layer of analysis. So I like hearing other vantage points and other interpretations of what could be going on. And certainly, I love seeing Orna's own chinks in her armor when she's feeling a little insecure or when she's feeling like, did I misstep here in the therapist's office? So, anyway, Boris and Jessica leave. I don't know what production did to get them to come back for the last episode, but they come back and magically everything is fixed. Boris says it's because he threw Jessica a birthday party and he was really intentional about it and planned all these nice things and everything's better now. I have no idea what happened, but it seemed very fake. It seemed like all the issues are going to rear their ugly heads again. I would love for them to be fully repaired, but I don't think so. Okay, let me highlight one other couple. There are four couples total, but I'll just highlight one more that I thought was interesting, and you guys can watch the show for the rest. Kyle and Mondo. So, two guys in a relationship for 6 years. Kyle is deaf and has been deaf his whole childhood, including with his parents, but he's a very good lip reader and he does have some kind of hearing aid device. Mondo is also the child of immigrants and spent a lot of time helping his parents who needed a lot of assistance navigating this new country. So now he's kind of taken those nurturing skills and applied them to Kyle, who has a lot of trouble navigating certain circumstances with his deafness and the fact that society hasn't really adapted so that he feels comfortable in every environment with every person, even though he's an expert lip reader. So, what was so interesting to me about this couple is that they have an open relationship. So, Mondo doesn't want to have an open relationship. He would be happy just to be exclusive with Kyle. But Kyle needs to step out. Kyle needs that freedom. And Orna was saying that the couple almost seems to thrive with this third element. With another person in the equation, their relationship seems to be on a better, clearer track because there's kind of a frame that can get held up to both Kyle and Mondo. She explains it a lot better than me because I don't really get how having a third person could make things better. I'm not saying that there's trouble with thruples or polyamory is wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I've just always seen that it complicates things rather than making things easier. But Orna disagrees in this circumstance, and she even points out that that's typically the case, that typically having a third is not the easiest way to repair a relationship. And in this case, it seems like it's really working for them. So I thought that that was so interesting. And spoiler alert, on the final episode, as the credits roll, you see that they're getting married, which is very sweet. And they seem to be really healthy, even though the relationship is not traditional. And I'm not just talking about two men getting married, but I'm talking about that polyamory angle. I just thought it was really interesting to kind of think about. And I also think there's some kind of trap with somebody being in a relationship with a caregiver that it can almost take on a parental feel versus a partner feel, which could get complex. I don't know. As you can see, in a different life, maybe I would have been a couples therapist because I love going on these journeys. I love giving my own personal assessments, and I think you will too. So head over to Showtime and check out couples therapy. It may be worth the investment in keeping that subscription because they just got signed up for a new season. So I hope it drops soon because I love it and I chewed it up and spit it out in 2 days. All right, everyone, keep your questions coming and I'll talk to you next week. Bye. A big thank you to our amazing producer, Katherine Heller, to Aton and the MVCR House Band, and to Affordable Interior Design, the sponsor of this podcast and the premier place to get an amazing look on a budget. Check out affordableinteriordesign.com. If you guys love the show, the very best way to support us is by spreading the word. Tell your friends or write us an awesome review on iTunes. So until next week, guys, thanks so much for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.